Chosen one. Have you ever noticed something strange about your life? There are moments when a room grows tense, when people around you begin raising their voices, defending their opinions, or trying to prove who is right and who is wrong. In those moments, something inside you moves differently. While others rush to react, your instinct is often the opposite. You pause. You take a step back, even if it is only a small one. You observe the room, the tone of people's voices, the emotions moving through the air. Instead of jumping into the noise, you allow the moment to pass without rushing to explain yourself. That quiet response can feel unusual in a world that rewards the loudest voice in the room. For a long time, that silence may have made you question yourself. Maybe someone at work once said you should speak up more during meetings. Maybe a friend told you that you keep too much to yourself. Perhaps someone in your family joked that you are too quiet, or asked why you don't defend yourself more often. Over time, those comments can begin to plant doubt in your mind. You may start wondering if something about your nature is wrong. In a culture where confidence is often measured by how loudly someone speaks or how quickly they argue their point, choosing silence can make you feel like you are standing outside the rhythm of everyone else. But what if the truth is very different from what people assume? What if that quiet instinct inside you is not weakness at all? What if the very thing others misunderstand about you is actually one of the greatest strengths placed inside you by God? There is a reason some individuals feel no urgency to react to every opinion, every criticism, or every moment of tension. Their silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. It is the ability to step back and see the bigger picture before responding. Throughout history, many of the people who carried the greatest purpose did not spend their time arguing with every voice around them. They developed a powerful discipline that most people never learn. They understood that not every moment deserves a reaction. Not every criticism deserves an answer. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is knowing when to remain still and let time reveal the truth. Silence can create space for clarity. When you are not rushing to defend yourself, you are able to see situations from a higher perspective. You begin to recognize patterns in people's behavior, motives behind certain words, and the direction a situation is moving before others even notice it. That awareness becomes a quiet form of strength. It allows you to respond with intention rather than emotion. So if you have ever wondered why you often choose observation over reaction, understand that this pattern in your life may not be random. Your silence may be one of the clearest signs that something deeper is shaping your character. It may be preparing you for moments where wisdom, patience, and self-control matter far more than loud opinions. In this message, we are going to uncover why your silence is not accidental, and why it may be one of the strongest signs that your life is being shaped for something greater. And if this message speaks to you, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who might need this encouragement today, and subscribe to the channel for more messages created especially for the chosen ones. Many people feel uncomfortable with silence. In everyday life, silence often makes people uneasy because it forces them to sit with their own thoughts. When a conversation pauses, many individuals rush to fill that space immediately. They begin explaining themselves, defending their position, or adding more words simply to avoid the quiet moment. In workplaces, family gatherings, or even casual conversations, people often believe that speaking more means showing confidence, intelligence, or control. The louder voice frequently dominates the room, and the one who talks the most is sometimes mistaken for the one who understands the most. But the chosen one often moves through these moments very differently. When conversations become chaotic or emotionally charged, your instinct may not be to compete for attention. Instead, something inside you slows down. While other people's voices grow louder and more intense, your mind often becomes calmer. Rather than rushing to react, you take a moment to observe what is actually happening in front of you. The tone of someone's voice, the way people shift in their chairs, the tension that quietly spreads across the room. These details become more noticeable when you are not caught up in the rush to respond. This experience can sometimes confuse you, especially when you compare yourself to others. In a group discussion, you might notice that people speak quickly, interrupt each other, and argue passionately about small details. Meanwhile, you remain quiet for longer periods, listening carefully before deciding whether anything truly needs to be said. At times, you may even question whether your silence makes you appear distant or disengaged. Yet the truth is often the opposite. The chosen one is usually paying closer attention than anyone else in the room. Silence creates space for awareness. When your mind is not occupied with planning the next sentence or defending your position, it becomes easier to notice what lies beneath the surface of a situation. You begin to recognize subtle shifts in people's attitudes. A small pause in someone's voice may reveal hesitation. A quick change in tone might reveal frustration that has not yet been openly expressed. These signals pass by unnoticed for most people because they are focused only on speaking. But when you are quiet, you have the opportunity to read the moment more clearly. This is not social awkwardness, and it is not a lack of confidence. In fact, it often reflects a deeper form of awareness. The chosen one tends to observe patterns in people and situations long before others begin to notice them. When a conversation begins moving toward conflict, you may sense it before the first harsh word is spoken. When someone enters a room with hidden tension or unresolved frustration, you may feel that shift even before it becomes visible. Your silence becomes a way of gathering information about the environment around you. In everyday life, this awareness can appear in very ordinary situations. Imagine sitting in a small meeting at work where a disagreement slowly begins to form. One person speaks with increasing intensity, another interrupts, and the discussion becomes more emotional by the minute. In moments like this, many people feel compelled to jump into the debate immediately. They begin arguing their position without fully understanding what is actually driving the conflict. The chosen one, however, often watches first. Instead of reacting to the surface of the disagreement, you observe the underlying motivations behind it. You notice who is speaking from frustration, who is trying to protect their reputation, and who is simply following the emotional tone of the group. That quiet observation allows you to understand the direction a situation is moving. While others react to the immediate tension, you begin to see the bigger picture. You can sense whether the conversation will resolve peacefully, escalate into conflict, or fade away once emotions settle. This perspective becomes incredibly valuable because it allows you to respond with intention rather than impulse. Another place where this awareness appears is in relationships. In social settings, many people focus primarily on what they want to say next. They wait for their turn to speak rather than truly listening. But when you remain silent for longer periods, you often notice things others overlook. You may detect subtle contradictions in someone's story. You may sense when a person's words do not match their tone or body language. These small details reveal the deeper reality behind what is being said. Over time, this ability to observe can make you feel slightly different from the people around you. While others enjoy constant conversation and quick reactions, you may prefer moments of quiet reflection. Crowded rooms filled with overlapping voices might feel overwhelming rather than energizing. You may find that your most meaningful insights come during quiet moments, driving alone down a highway, walking through a neighborhood at night, or sitting quietly after a long day. Those moments of stillness allow your mind to process information in a deeper way. Instead of reacting to the surface level of events, you connect patterns across different experiences. You begin to recognize how certain types of behavior repeat in people's lives, how certain conflicts follow predictable paths, and how certain opportunities appear only after a period of patience. This deeper pattern recognition is often the result of observation rather than constant discussion. Because of this awareness, silence becomes natural for you. It is not something you force yourself to do. It simply feels more comfortable than speaking without purpose. When you enter a new environment, your first instinct may be to watch and listen before sharing your thoughts. You want to understand the dynamics of the room, the personalities involved, and the direction of the conversation before adding your voice to it. At first, others may interpret this quiet presence incorrectly. Some might assume you are shy or unsure of yourself. Others might believe you are uninterested in what is happening around you. Yet those assumptions usually fade with time. As people get to know you, they begin to notice that when you finally choose to speak, your words carry clarity and intention. Because you spend so much time observing first, your perspective often addresses the heart of the situation rather than its surface. This is why silence can feel so natural to the chosen one. What looks like quietness on the outside is actually deep perception on the inside. Your mind is not empty in those moments. It is active, attentive, and aware of details others overlook. Instead of chasing every conversation or reacting to every emotional shift, you are quietly gathering understanding about the world around you. In a society that celebrates constant noise, this quiet awareness may feel unusual, yet it is often one of the most powerful forms of strength a person can develop. When you learn to observe before reacting, you gain the ability to move through life with greater wisdom and control. And while others may not immediately recognize the value of that silence, its power becomes clearer with every situation where patience and awareness reveal truths that noise never could. As you begin to understand why silence feels natural to you, another realization slowly follows. That quiet nature does more than help you observe the world around you. It also protects something extremely valuable in your life: your energy. The ability to remain silent when others expect a reaction is not only about awareness, it becomes a shield that guards your focus, your emotional stability, and your sense of direction. Many people move through life reacting to everything. A comment on social media triggers a long argument. A small misunderstanding at work turns into a heated debate that lasts far longer than the situation deserves. A casual remark from a stranger becomes something to defend, explain, or prove wrong. In this environment, energy is constantly being spent on moments that ultimately lead nowhere. Over time, the chosen one begins to notice how exhausting that pattern can be. You start to recognize that some conversations never move toward understanding. They simply circle around the same frustration, the same pride, or the same need to win an argument. When two people enter a conversation only to prove who is right, no real progress happens. Hours of attention and emotional energy disappear, yet nothing meaningful changes. This realization often arrives slowly through experience. Perhaps you once tried to explain yourself to everyone who misunderstood your choices. Maybe you defended your decisions to friends, co-workers, or family members who questioned your direction in life. At the time, it felt necessary. You believed that if you could just explain your reasoning clearly enough, people would finally understand. But eventually you noticed something interesting. The more you explained yourself, the more new objections appeared. The more you tried to defend your path, the more people felt invited to judge it. That is when the deeper lesson begins to form. Not every voice deserves your response. Not every opinion requires your explanation. Some people are not looking for understanding. They are looking for reaction. Silence changes that dynamic completely. When you stop reacting to every comment, you remove the fuel that keeps unnecessary conflict alive. Conversations that once dragged on endlessly begin to end much more quickly. Arguments that once demanded your attention suddenly fade because there is nothing left to fight against. In this way, silence becomes a filter. It allows you to choose where your energy goes, rather than allowing others to control it. Instead of reacting to every criticism, you begin asking yourself a simple question before speaking. Does this moment truly deserve my attention? Will this conversation lead to something constructive, or will it simply drain time and focus from the things that actually matter? Once you begin asking that question, your perspective on communication changes. You realize that many situations do not require a response at all. Sometimes the strongest answer is no answer. Silence sends a message that your time and attention are valuable. It communicates that you are not available for every argument, every accusation, or every attempt to pull you into unnecessary conflict. This shift becomes especially important when people around you start questioning your decisions. The chosen one often walks a path that others do not immediately understand. You may choose a career direction that seems uncertain to people who prefer predictable routines. You may step away from environments that once felt comfortable but no longer align with who you are becoming. When these changes happen, others sometimes react with confusion or criticism. In those moments, the temptation to explain everything can be strong. You may feel pressure to justify your choices in order to gain approval or avoid misunderstanding. Yet the truth is that some paths cannot be fully explained to people who have not experienced the same calling or inner conviction. Trying to translate every personal decision into language that satisfies everyone around you quickly becomes exhausting. Silence protects you from that exhaustion. It allows you to continue moving forward without constantly defending your direction. Instead of spending hours convincing others that your choices make sense, you invest that time into building the life you believe in. Progress becomes your explanation. Another way silence protects your energy is by preserving emotional stability. When people argue, criticize, or attempt to provoke a reaction, they often expect an immediate emotional response. Anger, frustration, or defensiveness gives them the reaction they are looking for. But when you remain calm and quiet, that emotional chain reaction never begins. Imagine someone trying to start an argument in a workplace setting. They raise their voice, challenge your opinion, and expect you to respond with equal intensity. If you react emotionally, the situation quickly escalates. The conversation becomes louder, more personal, and more stressful for everyone involved. Yet when you remain silent for a moment, the emotional momentum breaks. The tension loses its power because the reaction it expected never arrives. This does not mean silence is always easy. In fact, choosing not to react can be one of the most difficult forms of discipline. Human nature often pushes us to defend ourselves immediately. When someone questions your integrity or criticizes your decisions, the instinct to respond quickly feels natural. But over time, the chosen one learns that responding to every challenge is not strength. Sometimes true strength is the ability to remain steady when others are trying to pull you into chaos. Silence creates a protective boundary around your focus. Instead of scattering your attention across dozens of unnecessary conflicts, you keep your mind directed toward the goals that truly matter. Your energy goes into building, learning, improving, and growing, rather than defending yourself against every opinion that appears along the way. As this pattern continues, you may begin to notice another interesting change. People who once tried to provoke arguments often stop trying. Without the reward of a reaction, many conflicts lose their purpose. The noise fades, and what remains is a clearer path forward. This is why silence becomes such an important tool in the life of the chosen one. It protects your mental clarity, preserves your emotional strength, and prevents unnecessary distractions from pulling you away from your purpose. While others spend their time reacting to every voice around them, you move quietly forward, conserving the energy that will eventually fuel something much greater than any argument ever could. As you begin to protect your energy through silence, something else inevitably happens. Not everyone understands what they are seeing. In fact, one of the most common experiences for someone who chooses observation over reaction is being misunderstood by the people around them. Silence has a strange effect on human perception. In a world where people often measure strength by how loudly someone speaks or how quickly they defend themselves, quietness can easily be mistaken for weakness. After learning to filter unnecessary conversations and preserve your energy, you may notice that some people start forming assumptions about you. They see that you do not argue over every disagreement. They notice that you do not rush to explain your choices or defend your opinions. Instead of recognizing the discipline behind that behavior, they sometimes interpret it through a much simpler lens. To them, silence can look like uncertainty. It can look like hesitation. In some cases, it even looks like submission. This misunderstanding appears in many everyday situations. In a workplace meeting, for example, there may be several voices competing for attention. People speak quickly, interrupt each other, and try to prove that their ideas are the most important. Meanwhile, you remain quiet for longer periods, listening carefully before deciding whether to contribute. To some observers, that quiet presence might appear passive. They may assume you have nothing valuable to say, simply because you are not rushing to dominate the conversation. Similar misunderstandings can appear in social settings. In groups where people enjoy constant debate or playful arguments, someone who chooses silence can seem distant. Others might assume that you lack the confidence to join the discussion. A few may even interpret your calm demeanor as an invitation to push boundaries, believing that you will not challenge them. For the chosen one, these situations can sometimes feel frustrating. There are moments when you know exactly what is happening in a room, when you clearly understand the dynamics of a conversation, yet you choose not to react immediately. Meanwhile, others who speak with greater volume or urgency appear to control the moment. From the outside, it may seem as though they hold the power, simply because their voices fill the space. But time has a way of revealing truths that noise often hides. The individuals who rush to prove themselves in every moment often spend enormous amounts of energy maintaining that image. They feel pressure to respond to every challenge, defend every statement, and correct every disagreement. Their confidence becomes tied to constant performance, and that performance must be repeated again and again to maintain its appearance. The chosen one moves differently. Instead of investing energy in every conversation, you invest it in growth that takes place away from the spotlight. While others are busy explaining themselves, you are quietly learning, improving, and building something meaningful. Your focus shifts toward progress rather than recognition. This difference may not be obvious at first. In the early stages, people who misunderstand your quiet nature may believe they have correctly judged you. They may assume that your silence means you lack ambition or determination. Some might overlook your presence entirely, believing that louder personalities will always dominate the outcome. Yet slowly, something begins to change. As months pass and years move forward, the results of your quiet discipline start becoming visible. The same person who once remained silent in a meeting may later present a solution that resolves a long-standing problem. The individual who rarely argued about their career direction may suddenly achieve progress that surprises everyone who doubted them. The calm presence that once seemed invisible begins producing outcomes that cannot be ignored. When that shift happens, people often react with curiosity. They begin asking questions they never considered before. How did this person reach this point? When did they develop these skills? Where did this confidence come from? The truth is that the growth was happening all along. It simply did not announce itself loudly. While others were focused on proving their value through words, you were proving it through preparation and persistence. Silence created space for learning. It created time for reflection. It allowed you to focus on building something solid rather than defending yourself against every passing opinion. Another interesting change occurs once your results begin speaking for you. Many of the same people who once misunderstood your quiet nature begin adjusting their perspective. Some may start showing respect where they once showed doubt. Others may approach you with a new sense of curiosity, wondering how someone so calm and reserved managed to achieve what they once thought impossible. This moment often reveals an important truth about human perception. People frequently judge strength by immediate appearance rather than long-term outcomes. Loud confidence can appear powerful in the short term because it captures attention quickly, but true strength often reveals itself slowly through consistency and results. Silence plays a crucial role in that process because it removes the pressure to constantly perform for others. Instead of seeking validation in every moment, you are free to focus on building something meaningful over time. The chosen one learns to trust that progress does not always need to be announced. Some of the most important developments happen quietly, away from the opinions of the crowd. Of course, misunderstandings may still appear along the way. Even as your life begins to show visible progress, there will always be people who interpret silence in their own way. Some may continue believing that quiet individuals lack ambition simply because they prefer noise over patience. But these opinions gradually lose their influence as your actions speak more clearly than any explanation ever could. When people witness consistent results, words become unnecessary. Achievements communicate a message that arguments never could. A calm presence that once seemed easy to overlook becomes a source of quiet authority. The same silence that once led others to underestimate you becomes part of the reason they begin to respect you. This transformation reveals a powerful principle in the life of the chosen one. Silence does not erase your presence, it refines it. By refusing to chase attention or react to every opinion, you create the space needed to build something stronger beneath the surface. And when the time comes for that work to appear, the results carry a clarity that no explanation ever needs to provide. As time begins to reveal the truth behind your quiet nature, another pattern often appears in the life of the chosen one. The silence around you does not only exist in conversations or social situations. Sometimes it spreads across entire seasons of your life. After a period where people misunderstood you, where others spoke loudly while you quietly built your path, life may suddenly grow calmer in ways that feel unfamiliar. There are moments when everything around you seems to slow down, The phone rings less often. Invitations become fewer. Conversations that once filled your schedule begin to fade. Opportunities that used to appear regularly may suddenly pause. The world outside becomes quieter, and the absence of noise can feel unsettling at first. In a culture that constantly celebrates activity, movement, and attention, these quiet seasons may appear like something is missing. Many people experience these moments and immediately interpret them as loss. They assume they have been forgotten, overlooked, or left behind, while everyone else continues moving forward. When social circles become smaller and the pace of life changes, the first reaction is often confusion. Questions begin forming in the mind. Why has everything become so quiet? Why does it feel like life has stepped into a slower rhythm, while others seem busy and connected? For the chosen one, these seasons can feel especially intense because silence has already shaped so much of your character. You have learned to observe rather than react, to protect your energy instead of spending it on every argument, and to allow your results to speak louder than explanations. Yet when life itself grows quiet, even a disciplined mind can begin wondering whether something is wrong. But what appears to be emptiness is often preparation. Throughout history, some of the most important transformations in a person's life happen during seasons that felt slow and unnoticed. Growth rarely begins in moments filled with constant noise and distraction. When life is crowded with voices, responsibilities, and expectations, it becomes difficult to hear the deeper direction forming inside you. Quiet seasons remove that noise. They create the space necessary for clarity to develop. Think about the difference between a crowded room and a quiet place where you can finally think. In a room filled with overlapping conversations, your mind constantly reacts to what others are saying. Attention jumps from one voice to another, and it becomes almost impossible to focus on anything deeply. But when the room grows quiet, something changes. Your thoughts settle, ideas connect more clearly. You begin noticing patterns and insights that were impossible to see before. Life works in a similar way. When distractions decrease and the outside world becomes quieter, your inner awareness grows stronger. Without constant interruptions pulling your attention in different directions, you begin reflecting more deeply on your purpose, your decisions, and the direction your life is moving. At first, this reflection can feel uncomfortable. Silence forces you to face questions that busy routines often hide. What do you truly want your life to represent? Which relationships strengthen your path, and which ones quietly hold you back? What direction feels aligned with the purpose you sense within yourself? These questions require patience to answer. They cannot be resolved in a single conversation or quick decision. They unfold gradually through reflection, prayer, and honest evaluation of the experiences shaping your life. Quiet seasons provide the environment where those answers can emerge. During these periods, your perspective begins to sharpen. Situations that once felt confusing start making more sense. Past challenges reveal lessons you did not fully recognize when they first happened. You may begin understanding why certain opportunities closed, or why certain relationships slowly faded. What once felt like loss can start looking more like redirection. Faith also deepens during quiet seasons. When everything around you is loud and active, it is easy to rely on visible progress as a source of reassurance. Promotions, recognition, social connections, and constant activity create the impression that life is moving forward. But when those signals become quieter, faith becomes more important than appearance. In the absence of constant external confirmation, you begin trusting that your path is still unfolding, even when you cannot immediately see the outcome. Faith becomes less about visible success and more about quiet confidence that your preparation has meaning. This shift strengthens your resilience because it frees you from the need for constant validation. Another transformation often occurs during these quieter periods. Your sense of direction becomes clearer. When life moves quickly and opportunities appear everywhere, it can be difficult to decide which path truly belongs to you. Every option demands attention, and it becomes tempting to pursue many directions at once. Yet when the pace slows, unnecessary choices fall away. What remains are the paths that truly matter. In that clarity, you begin recognizing the difference between distraction and purpose. Some opportunities once seemed exciting simply because they were new or impressive. Others appeared important because they gained approval from people around you. But quiet seasons reveal which paths align with your deeper calling and which ones only lead to temporary recognition. Preparation rarely happens in environments filled with constant noise because growth requires focus. Skills develop through repetition, reflection, and learning from mistakes. Character strengthens through patience and discipline. These processes unfold quietly, often without immediate recognition from others. For the chosen one, quiet seasons are rarely empty periods. They are times when unseen progress takes place beneath the surface. While the outside world may appear still, your understanding, faith, and direction are quietly evolving. The lessons learned during these moments often become the foundation for the opportunities that appear later. When those opportunities finally arrive, others may view them as sudden breakthroughs. They may assume success appeared quickly or unexpectedly. Yet you know the truth behind those moments. What looked sudden to others was prepared during long stretches of quiet growth that few people ever noticed. In this way, silence once again becomes a form of strength. It creates the environment where transformation can happen without distraction. And although quiet seasons may feel uncertain while you are living through them, they often become the very moments that shape the clarity, faith, and preparation needed for the next chapter of your journey. As the quiet seasons of preparation begin shaping your perspective, another unexpected shift often appears in the life of the chosen one. The silence that once felt like isolation slowly begins to change the way people see you. During earlier stages of your journey, your quiet nature may have caused others to overlook you or misunderstand your intentions. Some assumed your calm presence meant weakness. Others believed your silence meant you had nothing important to say. But as time moves forward and your life continues developing through discipline, patience, and clarity, that same silence begins creating a completely different effect. Something fascinating happens when you stop reacting to everything around you. In environments where most people respond instantly to every opinion, criticism, or emotional shift, the person who remains calm becomes noticeable in a different way. At first, the change is subtle. People begin paying attention to how you handle situations that would normally provoke a reaction. They notice that when tension rises in a room, you remain steady. When someone tries to challenge you publicly, you do not rush to defend yourself. Instead, you listen, observe, and respond only when it truly matters. This behavior interrupts the expectations people usually carry into conversations. Many individuals unconsciously anticipate a certain type of response when they challenge someone. If they criticize your decision, they expect you to defend it immediately. If they question your ability, they expect a reaction that proves them wrong. These patterns are so common that most people rarely think about them. Yet when those expectations are not met, curiosity begins to replace assumption. When you stop reacting to every moment, people begin watching more closely. They start wondering why you remain calm in situations that usually trigger conflict. They begin questioning whether your silence hides something they have not yet recognized. Instead of dismissing you as quiet or reserved, they begin observing you with a different kind of attention. This shift in perception happens gradually. At first, it might appear in small moments. Someone who once ignored your presence during meetings may begin listening more carefully when you finally speak. A colleague, who previously assumed you were passive, may start noticing that your suggestions often address the core of a problem more effectively than long debates ever could. Friends who once encouraged you to speak louder may begin recognizing that your calm responses often bring clarity when conversations become chaotic. What they are noticing is not simply your silence. They are noticing the presence that silence creates. Presence is difficult to define, yet it is easy to recognize. It is the sense that someone carries a quiet confidence that does not need constant explanation. A person with presence does not compete for attention in every moment. Instead, their calm awareness naturally draws attention because it contrasts with the noise around them. When everyone else rushes to speak, the individual who remains composed stands out without trying. Silence contributes to that presence because it demonstrates control. When people see that you are not easily pulled into arguments or emotional reactions, they begin realizing that you operate with a different level of discipline. Your responses appear thoughtful rather than impulsive. Your words carry weight because they are not used carelessly. Over time, this pattern changes the way people interact with you. Individuals who once tried to provoke reactions may become more cautious in their approach. They realize that attempts to create drama or conflict will not produce the response they expected. Without the energy of reaction feeding those situations, many conflicts lose their momentum before they even begin. At the same time, other people begin seeking your perspective in a more intentional way. Because you speak less frequently, your words often carry greater significance when they finally appear. Conversations that once overlooked your voice begin including it more deliberately. People become curious about how you interpret situations because your calm observations often reveal insights others missed. This curiosity can appear in many areas of life. In professional environments, colleagues may begin asking for your opinion on decisions that previously moved forward without your input. In friendships, people may notice that your ability to remain steady during stressful moments helps them see situations more clearly. Even in casual social settings, individuals may find themselves listening more carefully when you share an observation. None of this happens because you demanded attention. It happens because your silence created space for people to observe you more closely. When someone constantly speaks, their presence blends into the surrounding noise. But when someone chooses their words carefully, every moment of speech becomes more noticeable. This is why presence often carries more influence than constant conversation. Influence does not always come from dominating every discussion or proving yourself in every debate. In many situations, the individual who speaks less but observes more holds a deeper understanding of what is truly happening. That understanding allows them to guide conversations with subtlety rather than force. For the chosen one, this form of influence often develops naturally over time. Your quiet nature encourages you to listen carefully, analyze situations deeply, and respond only when your perspective adds genuine value. As others begin recognizing this pattern, they gradually associate your presence with clarity and stability. The same silence that once made people underestimate you begins transforming into something entirely different. Instead of being overlooked, you become someone others watch more closely. Instead of being misunderstood, you become someone others seek to understand. This transformation reveals an important truth about human attention. People are often drawn toward what they do not fully understand. When someone refuses to react in predictable ways, curiosity naturally grows. Others begin looking for clues about what motivates that calm behavior and what insights may lie beneath it. Your silence, therefore, becomes more than a personal habit. It becomes a signal of inner strength and awareness. Without speaking loudly or demanding recognition, you demonstrate a form of discipline that quietly commands respect. And as people continue observing the consistency of your actions, your presence begins shaping the environment around you in ways that constant conversation never could. As people begin observing the quiet strength behind your presence, another important realization slowly emerges. Silence may have become a defining part of your character, but silence alone is not the full story. The true discipline of the chosen one is not simply staying quiet. It is knowing exactly when silence should end and when a voice must finally be heard. By the time someone reaches this stage of awareness, they have already experienced what silence can protect. It protects energy, it creates space for observation, it allows growth to happen quietly while others are busy arguing or seeking attention. Yet silence is never meant to become permanent withdrawal from the world. Its purpose is to sharpen judgment, not to erase your voice completely. The chosen one eventually learns a powerful balance. Silence becomes the foundation, but speech becomes the tool used at the right moment. When words are no longer scattered across every conversation, they gain weight. Each sentence carries intention rather than impulse. Each observation is delivered with clarity instead of emotional reaction. In everyday life, many people speak before they think. Conversations move quickly, and reactions appear almost instantly. Someone hears a comment they dislike and immediately responds. A disagreement appears, and voices rise before anyone has taken the time to understand the full situation. This pattern is so common that it often feels normal. But the chosen one learns to pause between hearing something and responding to it. That pause may only last a few seconds, yet it changes everything. During that moment of silence, your mind evaluates what is happening. Is this situation worth engaging in? Will speaking bring clarity, or will it simply add more noise to an already chaotic conversation? Does this moment require guidance, correction, encouragement, or nothing at all? This discipline allows you to speak only when your voice can truly make a difference. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond intentionally. Your words become deliberate rather than habitual. Over time, people begin noticing this pattern. Because you do not speak in every moment, the moments when you do speak become significant. In a conversation where many voices are competing for attention, a single calm statement from someone who rarely speaks can change the direction of the entire discussion. The room grows quieter, not because you demanded silence, but because people recognize that your words are not random. This influence develops naturally. When someone talks constantly, others eventually stop listening carefully. Words blend together, and the meaning behind them loses its impact. But when someone speaks selectively, listeners become more attentive. They know that whatever is about to be said was not spoken lightly. Imagine a situation where tension is rising between two co-workers. The discussion has already turned emotional, and several people are offering their opinions at the same time. In that environment, another loud voice would simply add more confusion. But when a person who has remained quiet throughout the entire conversation finally speaks with a calm and thoughtful perspective, the energy of the room can shift instantly. The reason for this shift is simple. Silence created credibility. By choosing not to participate in every argument, you demonstrated that your voice is not driven by ego or the need to win. When you finally speak, people sense that your words are motivated by understanding rather than reaction. This is one of the greatest advantages of disciplined silence. It transforms speech into something rare and meaningful. Each sentence carries intention, and each message is delivered with clarity. However, this discipline also requires courage. There will be moments when silence is no longer the correct choice. Some situations demand guidance. Others require truth to be spoken, even if it makes people uncomfortable. The chosen one must learn to recognize those moments and step forward with confidence. Speaking with intention does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. In fact, it often means addressing them with greater precision. When someone who rarely speaks finally expresses concern, encouragement, or correction, their message often carries more impact than dozens of emotional reactions from others. Another important part of this discipline is learning to communicate without unnecessary complexity. Because you are not speaking constantly, your words naturally become more focused. You say what truly matters instead of filling space with explanations that do not add value. This clarity strengthens your presence even further. People begin associating your voice with insight rather than noise. They understand that when you choose to speak, you are not trying to impress anyone or dominate the conversation. You are simply contributing something that needs to be said. In many ways, this balance between silence and speech mirrors the rhythm of wisdom itself. Observation prepares understanding. Understanding shapes words. Words then guide action. Without silence, understanding never forms. Without speech, understanding cannot help others. The chosen one learns to move between these two states with intention. Silence remains the place where awareness grows. Speech becomes the moment when that awareness serves a purpose beyond yourself. Over time, this discipline becomes part of your identity. People come to recognize that your calm nature is not hesitation, it is patience. Your quiet presence is not uncertainty, it is observation. And when your voice finally enters the conversation, it carries the strength of someone who has taken the time to understand before speaking. This is why the chosen one eventually discovers that silence and speech are not opposites. They are partners. Silence prepares the mind. Speech delivers the message. And when both are used with intention, the result is a voice that people trust, respect, and listen to long after the noise of ordinary conversation fades away. As the discipline of knowing when to remain silent and when to speak becomes part of your character, another transformation begins to unfold. Up to this point, much of your journey has been internal. You learn to observe before reacting. You learn to protect your energy instead of spending it on every disagreement. You learned that silence could sharpen awareness and give weight to your words when you finally chose to speak. But eventually, something even more powerful begins to happen. The results of that quiet discipline start becoming visible. For a long time, your path may have felt invisible to others. While people around you were speaking loudly about their plans, defending their opinions, and competing for attention, you were moving forward in a different way. Much of your growth happened away from the spotlight. You were learning, adjusting, reflecting, and strengthening your character in ways that did not always produce immediate recognition. During those earlier stages, it was easy for others to underestimate you. Because they measured progress through visible noise, they assumed silence meant inactivity. When someone does not constantly announce their goals or argue about their direction, observers often assume that nothing significant is happening. But time has a way of revealing what quiet discipline builds. Eventually, small signs of change begin to appear. The stability you develop through patience becomes visible in how you handle difficult situations. While others react emotionally to unexpected problems, you respond with calm clarity. The focus you protected by avoiding unnecessary arguments begins showing itself in the quality of your work, the consistency of your decisions, and the direction of your life. People who once overlooked your quiet presence begin noticing these changes. At first, they may not fully understand what they are seeing. They simply notice that something about you feels different. The same individual who once remained silent in conversations now carries a quiet confidence that does not require explanation. The person who rarely argued suddenly demonstrates insight that resolves problems others struggle to understand. These moments often surprise those who once misinterpreted your silence. They remember the earlier version of you who chose observation over reaction. At the time, they may have assumed that quietness meant hesitation or lack of certainty. Now they see something else entirely. They see the results of patience. Patience is rarely impressive in the moment it is practiced. While someone is quietly developing their skills, strengthening their faith, or building a long-term vision, there is little for the outside world to applaud. The rewards of patience appear slowly, sometimes after years of consistent effort that few people ever noticed. But once those results appear, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Your growth begins speaking through your actions rather than your explanations. People notice the way you navigate challenges without panic. They recognize the clarity behind your decisions. They see that the direction of your life carries stability rather than confusion. This shift often changes the way people interact with you. The same voices that once questioned your quiet nature begin approaching you with curiosity. Instead of assuming they understand your choices, they begin asking how you reached your perspective. Instead of dismissing your silence, they start paying attention to it. In many cases, respect grows quietly in these moments. It does not always arrive through dramatic praise or public recognition. Sometimes it appears through small changes in behavior. People listen more carefully when you speak. They consider your perspective before making decisions. They begin treating your calm presence as a source of stability rather than something to overlook. What they are responding to is not simply your success, it is the consistency behind it. Consistency is one of the most powerful forms of communication a person can demonstrate. When someone repeatedly shows patience, discipline, and clarity over time, their life becomes a message that words are no longer required to explain. Actions reveal character more clearly than arguments ever could. For the chosen one, this stage of the journey often brings a quiet sense of fulfillment. The silence that once made you feel misunderstood now reveals its true purpose. It was never about avoiding the world or hiding from conversation. It was about developing the inner stability necessary to move through life with wisdom and intention. When that stability becomes visible through your actions, explanations lose their importance. People no longer need long speeches to understand who you are. Your life itself becomes the message. In practical terms, this can appear in many ways. The colleague who once dismissed your quiet approach may now rely on your judgment during difficult decisions. Friends who once encouraged you to speak louder may now recognize the value of your thoughtful perspective. Even strangers may sense the calm confidence you carry in everyday interactions. All of these moments reflect the same principle. Influence does not always grow through noise. Sometimes it grows through patience that quietly shapes character over time. This is why the quiet strength that once confused others eventually becomes the very quality that earns their respect. What people once misunderstood as weakness reveals itself as discipline. What they once dismissed as hesitation becomes evidence of deep awareness. The chosen one does not need to convince the world of their strength through constant explanation. Strength becomes visible through the way you live, the decisions you make, and the calm stability you bring into environments filled with uncertainty. Eventually, your life begins doing the talking for you. The patience you practiced in silence becomes visible through results. The focus you protected from distraction becomes visible through progress. The discipline you developed through observation becomes visible through wisdom. And when that moment arrives, the same silence that once made others question you becomes a symbol of something far more powerful. It becomes proof that true strength does not need to shout in order to be heard. As your life begins speaking through the results of patience, discipline, and quiet strength, the meaning behind your silence becomes clearer than ever before. What once looked like hesitation was never hesitation at all. What others once misunderstood as weakness was actually restraint. And restraint, when guided by purpose, becomes one of the most powerful forces a person can carry. Chosen one, if you have ever felt misunderstood because of your quiet nature, you are not alone. Many people who carry deep awareness walk through seasons where their silence confuses others. In a world that often celebrates noise, quick reactions, and constant explanation, choosing calm observation can feel like standing apart from the crowd. There may have been moments when people asked why you did not defend yourself more loudly, why you did not argue harder, or why you allowed certain conversations to pass without response. But the truth is that not every strength announces itself through volume. Some of the most powerful forms of strength operate quietly. They appear in patience when others react impulsively. They appear in discipline when others lose control of their emotions. They appear in restraint when others feel the need to prove themselves again and again. Sometimes the greatest power lies in the ability to pause. When you pause, you create space between reaction and response. In that space, clarity appears. You see the situation more accurately. You understand the motivations behind people's words. You recognize which moments deserve your attention and which ones are simply distractions. Your silence allows you to observe the world with sharper awareness. Instead of becoming lost in every argument or emotional moment, you step back and see the larger picture forming around you. That perspective gives you the ability to move with intention rather than impulse. While others spend their energy reacting to every passing moment, you conserve your focus for the paths that truly matter. Over time, that difference begins shaping the direction of your life. Decisions become clearer because they are not rushed. Relationships become stronger because they are built on understanding rather than constant conflict. Opportunities become more meaningful because your attention is not scattered across unnecessary distractions. And eventually, something remarkable happens. The same silence that once made people overlook you begins to transform into something they respect. They see the stability in your character. They notice the calm confidence that does not require constant validation. They recognize that your words carry weight because you do not waste them. Respect grows quietly in these moments. It appears in the way people listen when you speak. It appears in the trust others place in your judgment. It appears in the realization that your calm presence often brings clarity where noise once created confusion. Because a life guided by purpose does not need constant explanation. When your actions reflect discipline, patience, and integrity, your life becomes the message. Words become secondary to the example you set through the way you move through the world. So if you have ever wondered whether your quiet nature is something you should change, consider the possibility that it may be one of the greatest strengths you carry. Silence, when used with wisdom, is not absence. It is preparation. It is awareness. It is the foundation of a voice that speaks only when it truly matters. And if this message resonated with you today, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need this encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more messages created especially for the chosen ones.